We are live. All right. So it did work with no problem this evening. Good evening, Corona Daze Professional Development Group, and anyone joining us in the Zoom room or in the group who's not a member. Good evening, I'm Danette Edwards. I'm the founder of Corona Daze Professional Development Group, and I am so excited this evening to host Jennifer Garibay as she talks about Resume and Opportunities 101. So a couple of things that she'll talk about is keeping yourself open to opportunities, when to use a chronological versus a functional resume, how to use data and show impact on your resume, what recruiters are looking for on your resume. All right, so Jennifer is a recruitment contractor at Google and a career consultant currently living in Austin, Texas. Jennifer used to manage and run the hiring for a team of 30 plus contractors who did promotions for big names like Crown Royal and Jack Daniels. She also worked previously in rental property management and event management. Jennifer specializes in connecting with people to suss out the root of their problems and provide proactive solutions. Her consulting niche is more focused on new college grads and corporate young professionals, but Jennifer works to help and helps develop job seekers from every walk of life. So guys, this evening, Jennifer, I'm gonna, you know me, I'm gonna turn it over to Jennifer immediately. She's gonna have a dedicated Q&A, so please drop your questions. I'll bring the Facebook questions over and give them to you during the Q&A, Jennifer. All right, guys, I'm turning it over. And thank you again, Jennifer, for being here with us.
Yeah, of course. More than happy to be here, guys. Very excited to chat with you all tonight or today. I know it's probably afternoon for some of you as well. So glad to be here. And we're going to open with opportunity and leaving yourself open to opportunities, because this is something that is so important and something that I was not taking advantage of until just a few years ago in my life. I had a very closed off mentality. This is the degree I got. I can only do something with these things. I can only, do a job in which I possess these skills, thinking that I was stuck to one sort of path and sort of my journey to that path. So I originally entered, college expecting to be a nurse, and that didn't end up working out. I had a 4.0, but I didn't make it into nursing school. I didn't have enough volunteer hours. They did require a lot of extracurricular volunteer hours, and I was unfortunately stuck in a position of supporting myself. So I was working full time. I didn't have time to pull off these clinical hours that they were requiring, but it ended up being a blessing in disguise. I am a big believer that everything happens for a reason. So, it pushed me in another direction. I ended up getting my degree in nutrition. I'm very passionate about health and wellness, so it was a lot of fun graduating with that degree. But afterwards, I found myself in this position of, what am I going to do with this? A degree in nutrition, if you don't move on and get a master's, there's not a whole lot you could do. And the extensive registered dietitian programs often did require you to quit your job and be, working in a clinical setting as well, which again, I couldn't afford and didn't have time for. So I felt very much so stuck. I felt trapped, like I didn't have anywhere to go with my degree, like I got the wrong degree. And really for a long time, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I started working for the promotional company. I had been doing a really good job, working my way up with sales, eventually being groomed to be the assistant manager and then the regional manager. But unfortunately, my income was not enough. So I ended up having to bartend on the side. And I would bartend almost 5 nights a week, working almost 60 plus hours a week, just trying to keep my head above water and to save and to make a name for myself. And it was exhausting. And I felt like I was killing myself slowly. I was so fortunate and so blessed to hear of an opportunity through my friend who happened to be a contractor at Google at the time. And I honestly just happened to submit my resume to him on a whim. Honestly, not expecting anything to come of it. I'm like, I'm from El Paso, Texas. I have my degree in nutrition. Why does Google want anything to do with me? But it's all about how you showcase yourself. Interviews are very important. Don't take for granted what you have to offer and bring to the table. Always be confident in yourself and believe in yourself, because you can go so much further than you think you can. When you just really open your mind to the fact that that you don't know anything, you know, that the opportunities are endless, the possibilities are endless. And that's something I tell myself all the time. I tell my fiance, it's like, the one thing I know for sure is that I don't know anything. And when you leave yourself open to these opportunities, you'd be surprised what can find you when you're not closed-minded. So it's something that if you connect with me on LinkedIn, it's something I post about a lot. I'm a firm believer in opportunities and saying yes to more opportunities that scare you. You know, I almost didn't come to Google. I actually told them I needed a few days to think about it, which when I tell most people that, they're like, really? You have to think about it? But for me, it was picking up and moving across the state, 9 hours away from my family, away from my support system, to go be a contract worker. I was guaranteed 1 year on contract. I did very well and managed to get a second year on my contract, but you know, that's never guaranteed. And so it was very nerve-wracking for me. But so I'm here to tell you, part one of this is just to open your mind, guys. You know, expand your thinking, because there's so much more out there that you haven't considered for yourself. And I'd like to think that I'm living, breathing proof of that. So open yourself to more opportunities, and you'd be surprised what can find you. So second part of this, we're going to be talking about resumes, guys. So what I do at Google, everyone asks me this all the time. So I'm a contractor in recruiting at Google. I work in recruiting, but I'm not a recruiter. I have been a recruiter in the past, so I do understand its functions, and I'm more than happy to answer questions about that. But in my current role, I really am more of a recruiting partner. I do, you know, work alongside recruiters to help them eliminate bias from the hiring process, and to sort of help to filter out and funnel down the noise. So as you can imagine, we get a ton of applications, a ton of applications, and it would be impossible for a recruiter to go through all of them. So I'm really the first line of defense in weeding out people who are just 100% not qualified for this role, whether or not they don't have the years of experience, they don't have the years of experience in the correct field, etc. So really funneling and narrowing, and then passing people on to the recruiter who really are the correct profiles that they're looking for. So speaking from my previous recruiting experience and the fact that I've reviewed over 40,000 resumes on site at Google, I'd like to think of myself as somewhat of a resume expert. Not to toot my own horn, but you know, I know a thing or two. So that's what I came to talk about with you guys today. We're going to talk about resumes, and I'm going to share a little presentation. So let me share my screen with you all, and let me present. Alrighty. So this is how to craft a resume for every job seeker. And so we're going to start with master resumes, guys. So what is a master resume, and why should you craft one? Crafting a master resume is a great thing to do because it's something that you're going to come back to and use when you want to apply to different jobs. So when you're creating a master resume, what I mean is create a resume and no one's going to see this ever. So you don't need to have your name on the top. You don't need to have your number. It's really just your job experiences and your various skills over the years. Because I don't know about you, but you know, 10, 15 years from now, I'm not going to remember everything I'm doing today at Google and what I achieved. You know, I'll remember generally what I did, but I may not remember my exact figures, my exact metrics, those hard data points that you're going to want for the future. So you want to keep this master resume, and you want to update it often. You want to, you know, put all your past work on there today, or obviously whenever you have time to do that. And I'm talking everything you've done in the past. I'm talking about that time you lifeguarded when you were 16, you know, that summer camp you did when you were 18, you know, your leadership positions in college, everything that could be even remotely considered professional experience. And you want to store it on this master resume, and you want to try to include as much detail as possible in regards to your metrics, the specifics of your roles, etc. Again, no one's going to see this. This is just for you. So it's okay if it's, you know, just a bunch of like, yeah, I did Microsoft Office. I did this. It doesn't need to be high level. It's just a place to hold this, because as you're applying for roles, different roles are going to have different requirements from you. And it makes it a lot easier to then sort of plug and play with your experiences and saying, okay, this one's a little bit more operational. I think this is going to fit better. I'll put this one as well as this one. And really picking out those competencies within each one that are going to allow you to showcase your talents and the skills they want to see for any sort of particular role. So highly recommend creating a master resume. It's a great place to start. So chronological or functional resumes, which one is best? And the answer to that question is a little complicated. It is that typically I would say a chronological resume is best, but technically it's reverse chronological. You go from your most recent job to, you know, the job you had the longest amount of time ago. Functional is really more so going to be used when you've had a lot of gaps in your resume, or if you have a lot of, you know, odd jobs that really aren't showing any sort of trajectory or any sort of, you know, theme of skills, because then the functional resume is going to allow you to really highlight on your strengths without having to, you know, denote them to each individual experience. And for those of you who don't know the difference between a chronological functional, like I said, chronological is your years from most recent to least recent, whereas functional is really going to just list the places you worked and then have your skills and experience sort of completely separate. The reason why this doesn't work a lot of times in a technical setting, and at least for my role, which is why I prefer chronological, is simply because the functional resume can often make it difficult to tell how many years you experienced a particular function within your role. You know, if you just have leadership listed and then you have all your roles listed, you know, I don't know which details necessarily go with which roles. So if I'm looking at your resume and I'm trying to, you know, see whether or not you have 8 years of leadership, if that isn't, you know, very easily able to be told, you know, within that resume, it's going to be hard for me to then advocate for you to move forward in the process as you aren't representing yourself to have that experience. So, you know, functional resumes can definitely be useful. Definitely if you have a lot of gaps, you're returning to the workforce, it may be the way to go. But consider consulting with someone or reaching out to yours truly. I'd be more than happy to help you with that. So start with the basics of a resume. So your name and your contact information. You're going to want your full name up top, and you want to choose an appropriate font size. Can't tell you how many times I see people with their name like Giant, Jennifer, Garibay. It's, you know, if they like your resume, they're going to go to your work experience first. That's where they're going to look. And if they like you, then they're going to look at your name. Your name is not the first thing anybody looks at ever, I promise you. It's really your work experience. So it doesn't need to be big or flashy, just boom, right up top, 12-point font, black, easy. You know, include your contact information as well. Obviously, you want to be able to get, they want to be able to get a hold of you. This is going to be your phone number, your email address, and you want to at least include your city and state. Honestly, for privacy reasons, I prefer not to include my full address on a resume. I mean, honestly, why does anyone need to know exactly where I live? Is my opinion, but city and state are very useful for recruiters, you know, in order to tell, you know, if you need to be relocated, things like that in regards to particular roles. So should you include a summary? This is a point of contention among recruiters, I would say. Some of them really hate it and some of them really like it. I am in the like it boat. I think it is something that is useful in the sense that you get a chance to hit on some competencies if they're not, you know, shown very well in your work, or again, if you have one of those sort of eclectic backgrounds, it may be better to try to showcase some of that in your summary. And I also think it's a great place for you to try to state what you want to gain out of a company as well. You know, this is a two-way transaction. It's not just, you know, what can you give me, but what can I give you as well? And what am I searching for in a company? You know, culture means a lot to me. And that's actually something that is stated in my summary. I talk about wanting to find a company with great culture to grow with, because it's important to me to find a company in which I can, you know, grow and continue to, you know, develop myself. So summary, I like it. You don't have to have it. If you want to skip it, it's not going to hurt you at all. Totally up to you. Something I will say though, is if you are in an instance with your resume where you have just like a chunk at the bottom, let's say you have a 2-page resume and there's like this much white space at the bottom of that 2-page resume. Well, maybe if you added a summary, it would make that, you know, round it out to a nice 2 pages. So sometimes I base it on that as well. Is that summary going to help it just to look more well-rounded and clean? Then maybe you should add it in. So after that, Your experience comes next. So for new grads, it's okay to have your education and your degree up top with your work experience to follow. But once you've been in the workforce for about 5 years or more, I'd say it's usually way more appropriate to have your educational experience on the bottom and to have your work experience be the first thing that's going to shine through. That's why we often see on job descriptions, they'll say a bachelor's degree or equivalent practical experience, because oftentimes I don't even need to scroll that far to see if you have a bachelor's degree, because if you've been working since 2000 in marketing, you're probably definitely more than qualified for a marketing role, even though you don't have a bachelor's degree. So that's not always the final say, but work experience is the queen bee. She should not be shown up by anybody else. It should be the first thing your eyes go to on the page. So make sure your work experience really shines through. Oh, and look, see right here, your work experience. Show your impact. So include your work history, like we said earlier, in reverse chronological order, and include the name of the company and the dates you worked at each place to the month mark. Now, why to the month mark? It's going to come into what we were talking about earlier. And that is, the month mark is going to be able to let me know exactly how long you performed a specific function. So, if you started at a place in March and you ended in March, 3 years later, obviously I know it was exactly 3 years. There are certain situations in which recruiters are literally counting the months. If you need 5 years of experience and I'm counting it, I'm going, okay, December to April, and you end up with 4 years and 10 months, I cannot pass you through for that role. It is not legally compliant for me to do that. So, include the months, because it is beneficial in knowing how long you have been in a particular role, which is often in a higher level setting, what we need to move you through in the process. And so give an overview of your work, within the position, focusing on higher level competencies. And your current job should be the only thing in present tense. Everything else should be in past tense. So higher level competencies there. What do we mean? And it's, sometimes easier said than done, but when it comes to higher level competencies, let's say you know how to, do SQL or to code. If you know how to do SQL and you can code, I would bet $100 that you also probably know how to use Microsoft Office. It's one of those things where it's like, if you're showing the higher level, you don't really need to show the lower level. And oftentimes it's just taking up more space on your resume. So now those things aren't necessarily super related, like SQL and Microsoft Office are two very different types of softwares, but it's that sort of thinking. If you're showing the higher level competency, you don't always need to show the lower one. So really stick to the higher level functions of your role, areas where you really show impact, where you were able to make change. Those are going to be the areas you really want to include, and hopefully you can include some data points with that as well, because you want to use data to show how you improved or changed the role in the work environment, because that proves that you can actually do what you say you can do, and that you are functioning well within your space and your role. So you want to quantify your impact in former positions with hard data, hard metrics. And how do we do that? You use data to highlight specific OKRs or to show how you improved a process or achieved a goal. So for me, an example I like to give is within one of my previous roles, one of my first jobs, we used to have this sort of credit card batching process, and it was super inefficient. We charged everyone's cards online. I had to type in all their numbers myself, and it took a really long time. And one day I decided to time it, and I just wanted to see how long it was taking me. And it took me about 6 minutes. So I realized, okay, if I'm 6 times 10 clients, that's an hour every day, that's taking up a lot of my time. So I wanted to figure out a better way to do it. So we ended up working with this sort of trick system and this software I found that we downloaded for the computers, and it was really able to speed up our process. And eventually we got it down to a 4-minute process. So that's just a really simple example. If you don't work at Google or some big company that's always giving you your data and like how you're doing, make that for yourself. Look at what you can improve within your space. Say, what can I make better? How can I make it better? and try to make a plan to do that. And you can make your own data and your own metrics if you try. So in that specific instance, I was able to, improve our operational efficiency, at least in regards to charging credit cards, by 33%. So that's a great data point I can add in there to show that I am great at logistics efficiency and running things on a team. So your education, you want to include your degree, your university, and the year you earned it. New grads, you can include your GPA if you'd like, but it's not necessary. I know when I got out of college, I was really proud of my GPA too, so I had it on there for a while, but no one's really looking at that. Again, we just are looking, do you have a bachelor's degree? Okay, great, you have it, box checked. Let's make sure that the work experience is appropriate for what we're looking for. And then in regards to your skills, make sure you include both hard and soft skills. Hard skills being things like SQL, languages, if you know Portuguese, if you speak Hindu, any of those things. Those are going to be hard skills, whereas your soft skills are going to be things like teamwork, collaboration, your ability to, think on the fly and things like that. So, make sure you include both. We want to see a well-rounded mix of hard skills and soft skills. If you find yourself running short on space for a skills section, at least make sure you include the hard skills and try to, interject the soft skills throughout the body of the resume. You can always use words like collaboration within your experience, like collaborated on efforts to, lead marketing team to whatever. You can use those sorts of soft skills that are actually soft skills like collaboration, and then you sort of interject them as verbs as a way to make sure you're sort of checking those boxes as well. So you want your resume to look clean and pleasing to the eye, and you really want to find a balance in the amount of white space on the page, to text, to, different size text, etc. So you want to play with it. I want you guys to love it. I always tell people, especially when I work with my clients, never take any advice from anyone that you don't, like in regards to your resume. You should love your resume. You should feel proud of it, and you should feel like it represents you well. I've met up with some people before who said, oh, someone said I should do this and I did it, but I didn't really like that. And definitely, if you don't like what someone's telling you to do, I would say, don't do it. You want to believe in your resume, but also within reason, right? We want to follow rules, procedures, and generally how these things are formatted if we want to get a job in the world the way it is. But this part is important because it's that sort of like 6-second recruiter thing. This is really where the formatting comes into play. Because if I look at a resume and it's just like messy and the fonts are all different sizes, it's super busy and your eyes go like this, it's overwhelming, and it's definitely not the same way you feel as when you look at a resume and it's clean and it's organized and you're like, okay, wow, like I can read this, you worked here. So it is important. Don't take for granted how important formatting is and that visual look of the resume as well. And always save your resume in PDF file, guys. If you save it in Word document file, when you submit it, the formatting can often get messed up. Now, I am that unbiased view within my role. I am not allowed to, nor would I reject someone for formatting reasons, because I'm looking at your work experience. Are you qualified? That's all I care about. But recruiters, and they're allowed to be picky. They're allowed to be picky, and they can be as mean as they want. And I've seen some recruiters who will literally, if your like bullet points are messed up or anything like that, they feel like you are careless. They feel like you are not taking the time to prepare your resume adequately before being submitted, and they may pass on you. And maybe you had a perfect resume, but if you submit it in a Word document format, the formatting can potentially get messed up. If you submit in PDF, that's never going to happen. So PDF is the way to go. And, you want your resume to express you. Like we said before, I feel like I hit on this pretty hard, but yes, you most definitely want it to express who you are, because that's who they're hiring, right? So just to wrap up, busting a couple resume myths here, but pardon me, guys, I've been talking a lot. I'm gonna have to chug water for a second. Okay, so some things to remember. Your resume does not need to be one page. This is a myth, a mystical unicorn myth that somebody made up, and I don't know who made it up, but they're crazy. because I can tell you that on a daily basis, it's actually pretty rare for me to see a one-page resume. One-page resumes, new grads, if there are any of you out there listening, I would probably recommend you have a one-page resume. Typically new grads don't need more than one page, but it does depend on your projects and the amount of things you did, within your college, or, maybe you had a full-time job. So that's not always a hard rule. You could be a new grad and you could need a 2-page resume. So, take up the amount of space you need without getting ridiculous. I usually say I wouldn't go more than 3 pages pretty much in general, even if you have like 20 plus years experience. 3 pages is usually where I cap it out. But really anywhere between like 5 to 15 years, I'd say probably a 2-page is pretty standard. And that's going to allow you more space to really show off your skills, your data, your metrics, and those soft skills as well. So don't be afraid to make that move to a 2nd page when you need to, or a 3rd page when you need to. But I will say as well that you want to try to fill out most of the pages. So if, you've moved on to a 3rd page and it's only taking up like this bit of the 3rd page, I would probably reassess and try to make it fit back on 2 pages, just because it's not as neat and clean looking to have just that little bit go over. Again, if you are dead set and it's like 2.5 and you're like, I don't want to add anything else, again, you should feel good about your resume and no one's going to hold that against you, as long as it's clean and organized. It's just a personal preference in my matter, but to be honest, I'm a little OCD. So I like my pages to be even in that way. And pre-professional experience can be very valuable. So make sure you include that, especially if you're a new grad. You want to show that you've had other roles, other experiences. Before I had to take it off my resume because I didn't have enough space, but before I came to Google, I did have a pre-professional space on there as well, because, when I was in college, I worked my way up through a nightclub. I went from being like a cocktail waitress to a regular waitress to a bartender. And those things are important. We're going to talk about that in a slide or two here, but recruiters love to see that sort of growth and trajectory. If they can see you growing within a place, even if it's a nightclub or something, it shows that you can be taught, and it shows that you can be trained, and that you can, take what people say to heart and act on it and grow. So that's not to be overlooked either. So if you're wanting to include more experience or pre-professional experience, and you're worried about how it's going to look in ratio to your other professional experiences, just know that you can make a section that says like pre-professional experience and include that work you did as a barback, include that work you did as a server. Sometimes that actually does set you apart. I actually met a hiring manager once who said he did not want to hire anyone who had never been in a serving position before, because in the role they did, they wouldn't understand the customer if they hadn't done that before. So you never know when that's going to come into play. Your resume does not need to be overly colorful, flashy, or, craziness or anything. I know a lot of people think they're going to go in with that mentality of, I'm going to make mine stand out. It's going to be colorful and cool and pretty. And that is one way to think of it. And that can be successful sometimes. I would say generally in a smaller setting, probably. If you're applying to like mom and pop type places that maybe only have like 10 applicants, then yeah, a colorful resume like that probably is going to make yours stand out way above the rest. But when you're applying for these big corporations, big corporate things, guys, it's not to your advantage to do that. In fact, sometimes it detracts if it's making it hard to find your work experience. So I really do recommend just a clean, streamlined, honestly kind of just boring, plain resume. It is the easiest thing to read, and it's going to let your work experience shine through the most. And then of course, I think I hit on this before, but your resume shouldn't include everything you did at a job. You don't need to say got coffee for the manager, and then I would get on my computer, then I would check my emails, and then I would write my reports. You could say that basically all of that could be said like supported manager with administrational efforts. I took 4 bullet points and I made it into one right there. So there's no need to list everything, but you really want to say that overarching, that higher competency, right? And then what are recruiters looking for? What are recruiters looking for when they look at your resume? What do they want to see? So recruiters like to see commitment in candidates. We really like to see that trajectory and that growth. You know, if you are moving up within a company, it is amazing. Again, it shows that you can be taught, that you want to stick around, that you have initiative, that you have drive. So if you've ever, you know, grown within a company, make sure you show that. Make sure, you know, if you have two different positions like nested under the big position, make sure on the second one you put like promoted from whatever, you know, make it obvious that you grew, because that's only going to help you. And then when it comes to loyalty, what we mean in that regard is people who stick around. So granted, there's contract work, and if you do contract work that are short little stints, I highly recommend putting it on your resume, like putting contract in parentheses. That way it is obvious that it's contract work, so that recruiters don't think that you're just like hopping around and doing 6 months at each different you know, job. We are aware of the way contracts work, so no one would hold that against you. But it's not something recruiters want to see if you're hopping around every 6 months, every year, because it's hard to, you know, make an impact and make change when you're moving around so much. So, you know, highly recommend, if you can stick around somewhere, you know, for a little while longer, to do so. Obviously, I do not advocate for sticking around somewhere where you're miserable or where the culture sucks. Culture is very important. But, you know, if it's not your favorite job, but you could stick it out for a few more months till you hit that year mark, that may be something I would suggest, so just so you have that more well-rounded look for your resume. And then you want to tailor your resume to each job description. So you can use Monkey Resume, you can use word clouds online. These are going to help you in passing the applicant tracking systems. So you'll submit the job description to this word cloud, and then you'll also submit your resume to this word cloud. And you want to make sure that more or less the themes you're seeing within the job description are the themes you're seeing within your resume as well. And that's telling you whether or not you're sort of hitting and checking those boxes that the applicant tracking systems are going to be looking for. And if you're not seeing, you know, similar words within your resume, you may want to go back and try to change some of the wording to include them if possible, as that's going to allow you to get a little further in the process for those companies that are using a strictly ATS type system. And additionally, guys, do plenty of networking. You know, get your name out there and connect with people. It's one of the most important things you can do. I started networking heavily on LinkedIn about 3-4 months ago, and it has 100% changed my life. I definitely recommend doing it as well. You know, it's not terribly difficult to throw yourself out there and share your knowledge with the world. And it helps to develop you as a thought leader and just to help get more visibility. You know, if you're really serious about getting a job, networking is going to be the wave of the future. You know, Corona's not going anywhere. We're going to be stuck in this virtual world for a while. So you want to try to develop your skills as best as possible, and really start networking and connecting with people for those future opportunities. So that's about it, guys. If you need some resume help or would like to, you know, do some LinkedIn optimization or anything like that, please feel free to get in touch with me. I, of course, have my full-time role for Google, but I also do consultings in the early morning and in the evenings. Before and after my Google job, I was really inspired by working with job seekers. And, you know, I have to send out rejection emails every week, and I can't tell you how many times it breaks my heart when people reply. And unfortunately, there's not a lot I am allowed to tell them. So that's really what started my LinkedIn journey, is wanting to help people develop professionally, improve themselves, and just, you know, grow better so that they can go out and find their dream job too. So more than happy to help you all do that. If you feel like you need some extra help, please do connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to be a resource for you in the future. And let's take some questions, Danette. I'm ready. Let's see.
Sorry.
You're fine.
Muted. You are muted.
I'm muted?
No, it was me. I was muted. I do it every time. All right. So thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah.
You know, I appreciate you being here with us this evening. We have a few questions. I'm going to take the ones in the chat first, and then I'll go to Facebook. So there's this question: what is the YouTube channel name? It's Corona Daze Professional Development. So I'll put that in the chat. I also put a link. You will get this if you are registered for this webinar. You'll get this email tomorrow with Jennifer's contact information and then our group and YouTube channel. All right, so please discuss ways that one can network successfully to have their name known to hiring managers, recruiters, etc.
Okay, great question. And that is a long answered question. So I will try to give you the mega condensed version. It is on two levels, I'd say. You need to be one, connecting and engaging with people. So you need to be sending targeted connections every day to people who work in the industries you want to work in, people who work at the companies you want to work at, or to people who work in like the cities and locations you want to work in. So for me, I should be sending connections to people who work at Google, people who work in big tech, people who work in Austin, any of those sorts of things. So you want to be sending targeted connections with people to grow your network, and you want to be actively engaging with them. And then part two of that, which a lot of people don't go as far as part two, but part two is really the kicker, is start producing your own content. Start putting yourself out there. If you're willing to start, taking videos or just posting, if you're not comfortable in front of the camera, at least like text posts, share yourself with the world. If you're a project manager, tomorrow I challenge you to write like the top 5 tips of project management or anything, it can really be anything. So really focus on optimizing, connecting, and start posting your own content and thoughts, and you'd be surprised how much traction you're going to get.
All right, thank you. All right, so I am an undergrad student, major in computer science and engineering, 18 to 22, and actively looking for software development intern roles. I was actively tutoring students, did public speaking, and even trained my juniors, arranged sessions on this, but they are somehow irrelevant to the job role. Is that considered by human resources? I'm assuming, okay, so this person is a computer science and engineering major,
right,
but has done work tutoring students, did some public speaking, even trained some juniors, I'm not sure in what, arranged sessions, but this is not relevant to the role that he or she is going to do in terms of computer science or engineering. So how would a recruiter look at this? And Swati, if I didn't say that correctly, let me know, but I think that's what is being asked.
Okay. So in that case, if it's not directly related to what you do, that's okay. You're showing leadership right there, I would say, in your ability to, build something, start to take that initiative to help other people and to train them. So definitely include that information. Just because it's not necessarily relevant to a particular role doesn't mean that it's not going to showcase other great skills that are very helpful to you, such as your amiable nature, your willingness to help, and just to step in and fix a problem when it needs to be fixed. I think that speaks very highly of you, and definitely something you should include.
I like it. Raymond says, what do we need to put in LinkedIn? The master resume information? We have a couple of trainings on this too, Raymond, but go ahead, Jennifer.
Yes. So for me, I would say not the master resume. The master resume shouldn't be what you put on LinkedIn. You really want to focus on those professional competencies. Like I don't have any of my bartending or my nightclub stuff on there. Really just more of my professional work is what I would say. And yeah, just hang on to that other stuff for the master resume in case you need to use it for a later date.
Anyone we have a really great presentation done by one of the LinkedIn career coaches. If anyone is interested in that, come to our group. I'll tag you in it. I'll send it to you. But it's called Go on the Offense with Your Career Search and LinkedIn Optimization. And every one of our members who does what Jacob Levy says has like phenomenal response on LinkedIn. So if you're interested, just come to our group and ping me, and I'll tag you in it.
Yes, optimization is key to get traction, guys. Definitely.
And then the gentleman who put this system together, Jacob Levy, last week, now in the US, you know, we had a holiday last week. Last week, he had 6 interviews and 2 offers. All right. So the guy that I'm telling you about this training he did with us, if you want to know, just come to the group. I'll give it to you. All right. So Muhammad says, how should one get around the fact that every company receives tons of resumes every day, and that affects the applicants mentally as well as getting hired?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So we do get a lot of applicants, and that's where I really feel like 2 things, both networking to make sure you can get your resume in front of the right person are very important. You know, it's not always about what you know. A lot of times it's about who you know, and that is very true. So definitely, you know, a lot going on in that regard. And I'm so sorry, I like lost my train of thought. Remind me what the question was again, Danette?
Oh, it's okay. Let me go back up because I'm looking at the next set.
I'm like, you ever have that where it's like someone just like erased your mind?
That every company receives tons of resumes every day, and this affects the applicants mentally as well as being able to get hired.
Yes, yes. So one part's networking, like I said, and then the other part is tailoring your resume. So most definitely you want to take advantage of those word clouds, and you want to take advantage of the job description, and you really want to make sure that you have tailored it to the job description very well. Those are your 2 best lines of defense. And even then, you know, I believe in being frank and honest. That's not going to guarantee anything. You could be a fantastic candidate and do both of those things and still not get accepted. A lot of times it comes down to just timing as well. But if you do those 2 things, you are setting yourself up in the best possible way for success.
Okay. All right, let's go to our next questions. Thank you, Jennifer. All right, so background. I love this. Let's give the background information. I am a student of Master of Material Science in Engineering and looking for opportunities in the automotive industry. So this is just background for the previous question. I thought it was like background and then we were going to get another question. Thank you, Mohammed, for that. Another question. I was a teacher for a year and that experience doesn't reflect my engineering expertise. Is that a beneficial point for me?
I would say so. Teachers have a lot in what they do in regards to like project management. I mean, you make lesson plans, you grade papers, you have to deal with people, little people every day. And that takes an incredible amount of patience and communication skills. So I would say 100% definitely include those experiences and make sure you really try to highlight, you know, those people skills as well as, you know, this sort of like crafting of material to teach, et cetera. Those are going to be, I'd say, the competencies within that area that I think would benefit you the most, but I think they would benefit you greatly.
Yeah. All right. Plus, I think when you're a teacher, you deal with so many different personalities. That's such a plus if you're going to go work anywhere, unless you're going to work in a silo, you know. This is an anonymous attendee. I really like that you started with opportunities. With that said, would you recommend this formula for resumes? Accomplished X as measured by Y by doing Z. How would you network? Okay, so that's one. How would you network into the hiring team? How would you network? We mean, how would you network with the hiring team? Okay. Well, but let's take the first part.
Part 1 of that, I would definitely agree. That's a great way to phrase it. The XYZ, you nailed it. You know, I did this, I, you know, showed this metric and this is how I accomplished it. That's like snaps for you. That's exactly what you need to do. The whole resume down. You like nailed the formula. So definitely a great thing in that regard. Now the second question, a little bit harder there.
I think, okay, if you're still here, anonymous, let me know if I got this right. I think this person might be asking, like, how do you network with the hiring team? So when you're networking on LinkedIn, is that what you're talking about? We can go back to it. Let's type in so that we can get clarity on that question. I'll go to the next question for now, okay? Okay. Because I'm not sure of that question, what it was asking. All right, so it says, Benjita says, I recently graduated from boot camp as a full stack web developer, but it's hard to find a job. I have been applying for so many jobs, but nothing is working for me. Searching jobs is hard as this pandemic time. Yeah. Do you have anything you want to say to Benjita?
Just to keep your chin up. I know it's really hard. It breaks my heart. I honestly can't tell you how many people I hear from every day who are suffering, with and can't find a job. During this time, I recommend just trying as hard as you can to upskill yourself, take advantage of the time you have off. I know it's not the thing people want to hear. They'd rather be working, but at least while you have this time, try to make the most of it. Build your skills and network like crazy. And if you aren't sending those targeted connections and don't have your profile optimized, definitely start doing that, because that will help to increase your traction as you network.
Mm-hmm. And then again from Benjita says, what are the key things we need to focus on while applying for jobs?
No, that's a great question. So the key things to focus on, I think, would be making sure you're applying to jobs strategically. So, there's always those times where, you see a role and you're like, I would love to do that. That looks great. Those moonshot type roles, but are you really qualified? Like if I, being a brand manager, that would be a lot of fun. But if I applied for a brand marketing manager role, they'd be like, what the heck is this girl doing? She is not qualified for this role. So be strategic with your job search. And sometimes, and I hate saying this, but it's true, sometimes you have to take a role at a smaller company or a role that's not your favorite. And it's not bad, but it's not your favorite. And sometimes you have to do that because you need that job, you need to skill build. And sometimes places won't take you seriously until you have a little bit more experience. So try to just be patient. I know if I had applied for Google 3-4 years ago, they wouldn't have taken me. It was perfect timing, and I had the right amount of experience and I was in the right place. And so, really just be patient and trust that the process will work out.
I love it. All right. So now I have some clarification. Networking to or with the hiring team, to know how the team is structured. What are the team's challenges, opportunities? What does the cadence look like? Learning more about the role, getting referrals, and meeting people in the process.
Okay. Well, that's a large question, but I would say that at least I know in my position, I'm not allowed to give that sort of information out. So if you don't already know who the hiring team is, you might kind of struggle in that regard, because oftentimes it is difficult to find out that information, as a lot of times it is very private and proprietary, and they're not going to be able to share that with you. Which is why I usually recommend networking more on the front end. You want to meet someone and get them to refer you to a job rather than trying to network with the specific hiring team for a job you already applied for. So it's really about trying to get on the front end rather than the back end. But in regards to networking, let's say hypothetically you were able to find out that information. I would say reach out, with a targeted connection request and say, hey, I'm very interested in this role. I would like to know, what are the top 3 things you're looking for in a candidate, or, what could I do to help better this team? You want to show initiative. You want to show that you care, that you're interested. And you definitely do not want to be needy. You don't want to message them and be like, please give me the job. I would like the job. I need the job. You want to be professional, and you want to sell yourself, and you want to tell them what you can do for them. And definitely send those targeted connection requests if you can.
Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, I am targeting big automotive companies as well as startups in order to make a good mix of applications. Since getting into bigger companies is difficult, how should I apply strategically to these different levels of companies?
No, I think that's a great question as well. I would say not too much should be too different. If you're going to be applying for the bigger companies, you can generally just use that same resume. Now, again, you may want to plug and play. You may want to edit those job descriptions for each specific role you're applying for, so that you can make sure you're getting more targeted with your search and making the most of these applications that you're submitting. Additionally, if you're, I think it's very smart that you're targeting, different levels of companies. If you're really interested in working with the bigger companies as well, potentially look into contract work. Contract work is amazing and it's a lot easier to get your foot in the door. That's what I do right now. And you're on the same level. I do the same thing everyone else on my team does. So, even though you're not an official employee, your ability to learn, grow, and network and build your skills is very much so 100% there. So, yeah, I would say it's not going to be too different in your application process. I would use the same resume, make sure you're getting strategic with your search. And yeah, start networking as well, trying to find those people to connect with.
Yeah, thank you. Should we always submit the resume with a cover letter?
Well, that is a very good question. I would say if you are submitting it to Google, guys, honestly, you could skip it. You could skip it because I don't read them. But because I'm literally not allowed to. Like, I am all about your qualification. Like, that is all that I am about. But at smaller companies, it does come into play. So I would say in ratio to the role you're applying for, just keep that in mind. But it never hurts to do. You never know which hiring manager is going to be that super old school hiring manager who really likes that polished sort of, where's the cover letter? They didn't include a cover letter. I don't want them as my candidate. So it never hurts. It's never going to hurt you. So you might as well include it if you're on the fence. But I definitely can speak to the fact that if you're applying for Google, you probably don't need it, but.
What are your thoughts on the LinkedIn easy apply option? I have some thoughts on that one, but go ahead, Jennifer.
I honestly don't know how I feel about it. I don't think I like it. When I've used it on my end as a job seeker, I've noticed I haven't gotten as much traction as when I regularly apply. So that's just my personal opinion. But to be honest, I don't use LinkedIn Recruiter the way the recruiters do. I just use regular LinkedIn for its function. So I imagine it would be different for them.
I think I'm going to give my 2 cents, Richard. I think, you're not wasting anything, but because you just click. But I think you could get lost in a sea of just people when you do that one. So, yeah. But I guess if it's just a click, you can't, what do you got to lose, right? Just a click, click. 3 top things from this workshop. This is from an anonymous attendee. Showcase yourself, be open to the possibilities, be strategic, network, and go. Keep growing. Yes.
Love it.
Those of you who are not Corona Daze Professional Development Group members, we strongly support networking in our group. So Jennifer is the 54th presentation that we've had. And I met Jennifer through LinkedIn. The other 50 whatever, because some of them were repeat, but all but 2 of the presenters were people that I met on LinkedIn. They came here and they offered their time. They gave us their expertise, and they're just relationships that I built on LinkedIn. So we support networking. We teach you how to network. If you're having problems, if you want a tribe, you can come join us. All right. Okay. So that's my plug. In LinkedIn, should we enable the open to work indicator in the profile picture so that our network will know that we are looking for a job?
Yes. LinkedIn actually put stats out on this a couple of months ago. And I believe, now don't quote me on this, but it's somewhere around this figure. You're 40% more likely to get contacted about work if you have the open to work on. So
I love it.
That is helpful, guys. Definitely put it on there if you are actively searching. If you're in my position, I would say it's up to you, because I'm sort of like, I'm a contractor, so I'm still looking for my full-time home, but I'm also happy where I'm at till the end of my contract. So I don't have the button on because I'm not looking right now. But if you're kind of in that awkward phase, up to you to make that call. But if you're actively looking for work, 100% I would have it on there.
I have a bunch of comments from Facebook. I only have one question. So this is Google hiring? I don't even see it. I saw it initially. Drop it again, Rhonda. I may get it wrong, but it was something about Google hiring people out of the country, overseas. Do you know anything about that? I don't think we could be so specific with tonight.
So as far as I know we still are hiring some people from overseas. Like, I mean, we never stop, immigration, it goes both ways. But I would definitely say, and this is across the board, a theme I've noticed right now, just due to COVID, there's definitely not as many visas available and not as many people being allowed to come in. So so I've been telling people who are more international to potentially wait to apply for roles until later in 2021 or 2022 would be to their benefit. I mean, obviously apply for anything you'd like, but I don't want you to feel like you're wasting your time when there just may not be anything available right now.
Yeah, and then does Google operate outside of the country?
Oh yeah, we have offices in over like 50 countries.
Okay, perfect. All right. Okay, so guys, I don't have anything else. Let me drop this because I said it. I'm going to drop. This is the link to that presentation for the LinkedIn strategies I told you about. The gentleman's name is Jacob Levy. Oh, I read an article. We have one now, so I just dropped that there. You can check that out. I read an article about LinkedIn open to work option, which said that it will be a negative on our profile and recruiters are more inclined towards passive candidates. How true is that?
I mean, all I can speak is from the LinkedIn statistic. Granted, I don't know where they got that from, so that's them saying that. I don't really know the numbers and figures behind that, so that could potentially be true as well. But in my opinion, I don't think it's going to hurt you. If you have your LinkedIn profile optimized, you have your banner right, you have your headline right. Honestly, your headline is one of the biggest things, because as you're commenting on people's stuff, if they don't click on your profile, their headline is what they see. They see your name and they see your headline. So it's very important that your headline accurately showcases your titles and what you're trying to do is probably one of the biggest parts of it. But I mean, passive sourcers go looking on LinkedIn for passive candidates. So you very could well be one of the passive people they end up looking for,
I love it. All right, guys. I don't have anything else on Facebook. I'm looking at my phone. I just have comments. Does Google hire remotely in countries outside of the US? That was the question. So
as far as we don't have any 100% remote roles even in the US yet. So that would be a negative, I think. But I think they're trying to move towards more of a remote world, but no updates yet on my end. We'll see where they go with it.
Perfect. All right, so guys, if you're new to our presentation by Corona Daze Professional Development Group, this is the time where I ask my 3 questions to Jennifer, so don't leave, okay? So I asked my 3 questions and then we wrap it up. If there's anything before my last question, I will take it, okay? So you have about 2 minutes to jump in with any final questions, guys. All right, so Jennifer, again, thank you. I really appreciate you coming here tonight. I love this. And then I know our members got great value this evening from you being here. So CDPD's mission is to increase marginalized and BIPOC groups' access to employment opportunities and representation in the workforce by providing our members with free training, mentorship, and other resources. So we serve people from marginalized groups. That's part of our mission. So I ask everyone that comes here, have you ever been marginalized?
I would say yes, as a half Hispanic, half white woman who grew up in a border town in El Paso, Texas. I definitely have felt marginalized before in my life by both sides of my ethnicity. It's definitely been a hard point for me, sort of growing up, not feeling accepted by white people, and then also not feeling accepted by Hispanic people. As I'm like a woman with 2 countries. So I've definitely felt that way before, but it's something that I've learned to love about myself and something that I think should be celebrated.
Right, I love it. So guys, I asked the question so that if anyone here, either right now live with us or anyone in the replay says, oh, like things aren't good, I'm marginalized, or I'm being discriminated against, or whatever the case may be, I'm not allowed to have my full voice because people are not allowing me because of, something I'm being marginalized for, that you see Jennifer is a very successful person saying that, yes, I have struggled with, being marginalized, but I've accepted that and I moved on from it. So I ask the question not for woe is me, but to hopefully give encouragement, motivation, and strength to our watchers and listeners. So thank you for sharing. This is my favorite question, Jennifer. And you're not that old, but still. If you could go back in time and you can tap a younger Jennifer on the shoulder and give her some advice about her career, what would you tell her?
I would tell her exactly what I told you guys at the beginning. And that would be to stop limiting yourself with your mindset and to stop holding yourself back by thinking that things aren't made for you because you've been cut from any particular cloth, because you guys can do literally anything you set your mind to. So yeah, just really keep yourself open to opportunities. And sorry about my barking dog in the background.
Oh, I'm surprised mine didn't come here. She usually jumps up on me, so we're cool. All right, final question, and then you can go to your dog. Guys, you didn't say anything in the chat. Good, they didn't say anything. All right, and we don't have any questions here. All right, so this is our final question, guys, and we are wrapping it up. If we had one takeaway tonight, and it may be something you said, it might be what you just said. If there's only one thing we could walk away with this evening, what do you want us to walk away with?
Yeah, if I had to choose one thing, I'm really bad at choosing one thing because I would.
I'll give you two. So many people say that. Okay, I'll give you two.
Okay, you're gonna give me two. You're gonna give me two. It would be to leave yourself open to opportunities and to network and put yourself out there as much as possible.
All right, I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you again, Jennifer. All of you who are here in the Zoom room, if you are not a Corona Daze Professional Development Group member, what are you waiting for? Okay, because we do this all the time with great people like Jennifer. If you catch us on YouTube, if you find value from this, share it. Share it so that your other members of your network can find value as well. And I just thank you all for being here. Again, you'll get an email with contact information for Jennifer and our group. And Jennifer, thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a good evening.
Y'all too. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.